And the member needs to call. Look, I call the Honourable Member Denise Roach.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Mr Speaker. And to my esteemed colleagues, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm increasingly dismayed by the climate of inequality that this government has fostered. Quite aside from the short-sighted and punitive welfare reforms, which is a debate in itself, the chipping away that this government has done to workers' rights and union rights is creating an environment where bad employers think that they can run riot. In the last few months, we've had strikes from rest home workers simply trying to negotiate a decent pay rate, many of whom are on $13.61 an hour. We've had 1,200 workers, meat workers, locked out by tallies who own the AFCO meat workers processing in several small towns across New Zealand. And of course, in the place where I come from, we have had the ongoing dispute with the ports of Auckland. The things that these three disputes have all had in common is that their workforces were unionised. And frankly, this government is pursuing an anti-union agenda as part of their strategy to create a low-wage economy at the expense of workers. And guess what, people? This is why people are flocking to Australia, where strong unions deliver sound wages and working conditions. When I look closely at the Ports of Auckland dispute with the Maritime Union, I become increasingly worried. The ports have been a highly profitable council asset, owned by the ratepayers of Auckland, but the sheer mismanagement of the entire dispute and the hard-nosed approach of the port bosses and board, the way they're taking this approach with workers, makes me wonder about whether they're deliberately running down the reputation and productivity of the port in order to flog it off to their mates. And they do have mates. Ports Board Chair Richard Pearson, he's mates with Hong Kong billionaire Li Ka-shing, who was sniffing around looking for a port to buy in New Zealand in 2008 and had to settle for buying Wellington Electricity instead. CEO Tony Gibson, he's mates with Maersk Shipping because he used to work for them. This whole dispute hinges on the fact that the board and management wanted to make the board more productive. And we can make the board more productive, but not by casualising or contracting out the workers. We need a national port strategy so the shipping companies cannot drive down the prices. And we also need to remove the exemption that shipping companies currently have under the Commerce Act to prevent them from acting like a cartel. When you look at the ports of the Auckland...
Order. Sorry. The member is referring, when they use the word you refer to the Speaker, you bring me into the debate. You can't do that.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When one looks at the actions of the Ports of Auckland bosses, they don't seem to care about productivity. For purely economic reasons, good managers would ensure that there was a good employment relationship. But since December, in this dispute, they have negotiated in bad faith during the contract negotiations, shown an unwillingness to settle even when all their demands for more flexibility were met, displayed a reluctance to intermediation, decided to contract out the jobs to private companies while negotiating the collective agreement, allowed workers' leave details to be leaked to the media and a right-wing blogger, made a mockery of the facilitated agreement they'd reached last Thursday with the Employment Court to go back to negotiate in good faith. They illegally locked out workers based on the port boss's unfounded and unproven beliefs that the union members would harm the other staff, and they issued a lockout notice for an indefinite period following next week. From that list, you have to conclude that the management practice is seriously flawed at the ports. They're either madly incompetent or else they're pursuing the same badly thought out privatisation agenda that the national government is. And maybe that's what this government and Rodney Hyde had in mind when they forced the amalgamation of Auckland councils into the Auckland super city and removed accountability and from our council assets from our elected councillors. This government is union busting, it's into privatising, and it's anti-democratic.
I call the honourable member Cam Calder?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I start, I'd just like